Hey guys, tonight we step quietly into the dim-lit world of a 17th century Dutch clockmaker. You wake just before dawn, the soft gray light sneaking under your narrow workshop window in Amsterdam. Your breath curls in the chilly air, and outside, the faint clatter of horse hooves and the distant toll of a church bell stretch lazily across cobblestone streets. The faint scent of damp wood mingles with something metallic and oily. Your tools, waiting. You rub your hands together and prepare for a day spent shaping time itself. Just remember, you probably won't survive this careful, tedious world of gears and springs, but hey, at least you'll fall asleep faster than usual. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and drop your location and local time in the comments, because everyone loves knowing where you're sneaking in this bedtime story from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge over to your wooden workbench scarred from decades of precise labor. The first light of morning filters through grimy, leaded glass windows, casting a pale glow over your tools. Tiny files, hammers, and pincers, all laid out like soldiers preparing for battle. The smell of beeswax and linseed oil lingers in the air, your faithful companions for cleaning and preserving your brass creations. The city is waking slowly. But here, in this pocket of quiet, your world hums with mechanical potential. The 17th century is the Dutch Golden Age, a time when Amsterdam pulses with commerce, exploration, and invention. Yet your life is humble and methodical, caught in the endless grind of creating precise, tiny components that will one day mark the hours for merchants, priests, and maybe even the mayor. You can hear the distant clanging of the city's early bells, a reminder that time is both measured and owned by the community. Today you'll focus on crafting gears, those small, interlocking brass wheels that keep the whole clock's heart beating true. Each gear must be filed to perfection, its teeth shaped by hand with painstaking care. It's a skill learned over years, passed down in families and guarded by the Clockmakers Guild, which holds tight to its secrets. Interestingly, historians still argue whether the pendulum clock was truly invented in the Netherlands or if other European craftsmen deserve equal credit. While you adjust the delicate pendulum weights, you can't help but think about how this invention revolutionized the way the world keeps time. You are a small cog in a much larger machine of history. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of your workshop, a curious little brass bird, part of a musical clock you've been tinkering with, softly chirps its mechanical song, adding a whimsical soundtrack to your morning ritual. Some of your clients adore these musical clocks, while others think them frivolous. But you know it's this blend of art and mechanics that gives your craft soul. The guild demands precision, but it also thrives on rivalry. You sometimes overhear whispered debates about who makes the finest escapement mechanism or who has the smoothest gear train. It's a world of subtle competition, quiet but fierce. Outside, the city's daily rhythm starts to pick up. Canal barges creak, vendors shout their wares, and you feel the pulse of life beyond your workshop walls. Yet inside, the scent of metal and oil, the glow of early sunlight, and the steady tick of unfinished clocks ground you in a timeless ritual. By mid-morning, your hands ache slightly from filing, but your eyes are sharp, catching every imperfection. This is work for the patient, for those who find comfort in repetition and subtle motion. You pause briefly to sip bitter coffee, its warmth a welcome contrast to the cool air. It's easy to forget that back then, accurate timekeeping wasn't just a luxury, it was vital for navigation, trade, and religious observance. The Dutch merchant, ships sailing to far-off lands rely on your work to keep their schedules. Historians still debate exactly how widespread these clocks were among common folk, but in wealthier circles your creations are prized. You glance over at your wooden shelves lined with half-finished clocks, parts, and sketches. Each tells a story of hours spent in quiet focus, the slow dance of cogs and springs embodying a world that's equal parts science and magic. You adjust your spectacles and get back to work, lost in the soothing hum of the clockmaker's dawn ritual. Your morning continues with the slow, meticulous art of gear crafting, the true heartbeat of every clock you build. You pick up a small, thin disc of brass, roughly the size of a coin but destined to become a gear that will dictate the very rhythm of time itself. It's astonishing how something so tiny carries such weight. One imperfect tooth, and the whole mechanism might falter, sending hours into chaos. As you set to work, you can almost feel the patience of centuries guiding your hands. Using a set of fine files and a small hammer, you begin shaping the gear's teeth. The soft scraping sound fills the room, punctuated by occasional taps. Your fingers move with the kind of practiced ease that only hundreds of hours of repetitive motion can create. Your apprentice once joked that your hands are clock muscles, and you smile at the thought. Though the work is anything but easy, crafting these gears is a slow dance, a blend of art and science. You hold the gear up to the light, rotating it carefully to check that each tooth is symmetrical and perfectly angled. You know this because the gears must mesh smoothly with others, transmitting energy from the mainspring to the hands that will point to the hour and minute. A single slip could jam the whole works or wear it down prematurely. It's a responsibility that can feel heavier than the brass itself. The guild you belong to watches over this craft with a mixture of pride and suspicion. Techniques for making these tiny gears have been honed and guarded like royal secrets. While you are free to experiment, straying too far from accepted methods invites whispered criticism, if not outright exclusion. Yet, you have heard rumors from other workshops that some clockmakers are testing hardened steel instead of brass for gears, a notion many dismiss as folly. Historians still argue whether this experimentation marked a true turning point or remained isolated eccentricity. As you file away, the rhythmic sound of your tools echoes like a heartbeat in the quiet workshop. Outside, the city's early bustle drifts in, the clip-clop of hooves, the occasional shout of a market vendor. The contrast between your focused, intimate work and the sprawling life of Amsterdam never ceases to fascinate you. Time ticks differently in here. Measured, deliberate, almost sacred. Your fingers have learned to detect the slightest imperfection by touch alone. You stop and hold the gear close to your eye, marveling at the delicate precision you've achieved. This level of craftsmanship is necessary, especially now that clocks are becoming not only tools but statements of wealth and status. Owning a finely crafted clock shows you have mastery over time, or at least want others to think so. One quirky tradition you find amusing is that some clockmakers swear by rubbing a mixture of crocodile dung and oil on gears to prevent rust and friction. While the idea makes you wrinkle your nose, you can't deny the effectiveness of some ancient remedies. Whether this was widespread or a fringe practice remains uncertain, but it's a reminder that the line between science and superstition remains blurry in your craft. You glance over at your apprentice, who is clumsily attempting to cut a gear from a brass sheet. You resist the urge to laugh, knowing full well that years of practice lie ahead before their hands gain your steady touch. Patience, you say quietly. The clock doesn't rush, and neither should you. The hours slip by as you shape, gear after gear. Your back stiffens, but your mind drifts into a soothing trance. It's almost meditative, this slow crafting of time's mechanical heart. The faint smell of brass dust and oil lingers in the air, mingling with the soft ticking from other clocks in the workshop, each at different stages of assembly. By midday, your workbench is scattered with brass shavings and half-finished components. You take a brief break, rubbing your hands to stave off stiffness. The sun now streams more fully through the window, spotlighting a gear wheel as it spins slowly on a testing rig. This little rotation is a promise that the time you craft will keep on turning long after you're gone. Historians still debate how many 17th century Dutch clockmakers were skilled enough to handcraft every component, as opposed to relying on parts from other regions. But you know this workshop's work is a blend of traditional handcraft and evolving methods, embodying the spirit of an age balanced between old and new. The quiet joy of gear crafting is a secret language you share, only with those willing to listen and with time itself. The gentle ticking in your workshop is punctuated now by your careful adjustment of pendulums, those elegant swinging arms that govern the clock's steady heartbeat. You handle the slender rod with reverence. After all, the pendulum is your clock's soul, the mechanism that transformed timekeeping from guesswork into precision. You know that Christian Huygens, a fellow Dutchman, is credited with inventing the pendulum clock just a few decades earlier, around 1656. This breakthrough made your work both more exacting and more celebrated. But the origins of the pendulum clock aren't without controversy. Historians still argue whether the pendulum was truly Huygens' original idea, or if others in Europe contributed to its development earlier or independently. You've heard whispered tales in the guild of rival craftsmen claiming their own secret pendulum designs, sometimes dismissed as fanciful or even heretical. The truth as often lies tangled somewhere in the shadows. Today you carefully test the pendulum's swing, adjusting its length by twisting a tiny nut at the bottom. Even the smallest change will speed up or slow down the clock, a reminder that time itself is pliable if only in your hands. You marvel at how something so simple, a swinging weight, can govern hours and minutes with uncanny accuracy, a sharp contrast to the uneven chimes of old weight-driven clocks. You position the pendulum so it swings freely, its motion smooth and hypnotic. The rhythmic arc casts shifting shadows on your wooden bench, a quiet dance of light and dark. The sound is almost like a lullaby, soothing and regular. It's not lost on you that this innovation owes as much to physics as it does to artful craftsmanship. Of course, pendulums aren't without their quirks. You recall a curious story from a fellow clockmaker about a clock installed aboard a ship bound for the East Indies. The constant motion of the sea threw off the pendulum's swing, making the time wildly inaccurate. This problem eventually spurred the creation of the marine chronometer, a masterpiece of engineering in its own right. But that's a tale for another quiet night. You've read that some makers experimented with different pendulum materials, wood, metal, even glass, to try and minimize temperature effects that would alter the pendulum's length. Such innovations came with mixed success, and naturally, some purists scorned these experiments. Historians still argue whether these early experiments were truly scientific advances or merely tinkering born of impatience. While you watch the pendulum's steady arc, your mind drifts to the broader significance of this simple device. With pendulums, timekeeping leaps from the realm of divine mystery into something humans can control and measure. It shapes daily life, from prayer times to market openings, and even navigation across the seas. Your fingers hover over the fine adjustment screw, making a minute tweak, feeling the clock respond immediately. You think about how every tiny modification you make sends ripples through the mechanisms of society, whether people realize it or not. This is the quiet power you wield as a clockmaker. Outside your window, the world moves at its chaotic pace, but here, time is measured with newfound precision and calm. You take a slow breath, feeling the rhythmic swing of the pendulum settle deep into your senses, a metronome for the soul. The whispered voices of the Clockmakers Guild drift to you through the heavy wooden door, a mixture of camaraderie and rivalry, wrapped in formal politeness. You step inside the dimly lit hall, where familiar faces gather around sturdy oak tables, the scent of candle wax mingling with old parchment and polished brass. This is the heart of your profession's secretive world, a place where knowledge is currency and silence is golden. The Guild is a peculiar institution, both protector and gatekeeper of your craft. Here, techniques passed down through generations are exchanged cautiously, always with a hint of suspicion. You listen closely as the master clockmakers debate the merits of new escapement designs, the intricate mechanisms that control the release of energy from the mainspring. Pride swells quietly when your own recent innovations are praised, but you're careful not to overstep. Boasting too loudly can invite jealousy. The politics of the Guild are as precise as the clocks you build. Membership is hard-earned and fiercely guarded, and you know that sharing too much with outsiders risks losing your livelihood. Some members cling stubbornly to tradition, while others push for innovation, testing new alloys or methods. Historians still argue whether the Guild's secrecy slowed progress or preserved quality standards that defined Dutch clockmaking for centuries. Tonight's meeting buzzes with tension as whispers circulate about a foreign craftsman in Rotterdam, rumored to have devised a spring-driven clock that could keep time without weights or pendulums. The idea excites some and alarms others. It challenges everything you know. You wonder if this will be a turning point or just another passing curiosity. The guild also holds rituals to mark the passing of apprentices into masters, ceremonies heavy with symbolism, a new cog fitting seamlessly into the grand machinery. You recall your own initiation, the nervous thrill of presenting a finished clock for approval, the anxious wait as masters inspected every gear and spring. Amid the serious talks, there's a surprising lightness. Jokes about missing screws and wobbly hands lighten the mood, and someone hums an old clockmaker's tune, a quirky melody that mimics the tick-tock rhythm. This balance of gravity and humor is part of the guild's charm. You notice the intricate wooden carvings on the hall's walls, depicting clocks and celestial bodies, a reminder that your craft is part of a cosmic order. These decorations serve both as inspiration and a subtle warning. Precision is sacred, mistakes costly. The debates sometimes veer into heated arguments over the true function of time, whether it's a human construct or a divine constant. Scholars outside the guild still debate this, and within these walls your peers quietly wrestle with it too. As the meeting winds down, you exchange a few guarded words with fellow craftsmen, promising to share notes but with the understanding that trust is fragile. The guild is both a community and a battleground, where secrets keep the wheels turning and progress measured in cautious steps. Stepping back into the cool night air, the sounds of the city greet you anew. The guild's weight lingers, but so does a renewed sense of purpose. Your place in this timeless fraternity, shaping moments one tick at a time. Light filters softly through the dusty panes of your workshop window, casting long, gentle shadows that shift slowly as the day unfolds. The sun, climbing higher now, dances with the countless brass components scattered across your worn wooden bench, each catching a gleam that seems almost alive. It's a quiet ballet of light and dark, like the slow turning of time itself made visible in your humble domain. You pause your work to watch how the shadows fall over a half-finished escapement, the delicate heart of a clock's motion. The intricate shapes remind you how the play of light can reveal or obscure, just as the precision of your craft exposes hidden truths about the nature of time. There's a poetic rhythm here, a daily reminder that your workshop is both a laboratory and a sanctuary. The sun's angle changes gradually, illuminating specks of dust floating lazily in the air, catching like tiny stars in the warm glow. It's an atmosphere thick with the scent of wood, brass, and a faint trace of linseed oil, comforting and familiar. You inhale deeply, the quiet filling your senses and grounding you in this moment, where time's passage is measured in shadows and subtle motions. The curious interplay between daylight and shadow isn't just aesthetic, it influences your work in subtle ways. You've learned to rely on the shifting light to reveal imperfections invisible under artificial glow. A gear tooth's uneven edge or a tiny scratch can betray itself only when the sun's rays strike just right. The shifting shadows become your natural quality control, your silent assistance in the quest for perfection. Outside, the city's hustle continues, but inside this quiet space, the slow, deliberate dance of light mirrors your own, rhythm measured, patient, and thoughtful. There's an almost meditative quality to this daily pattern, a routine that ties your solitary craft to the grand cycles of the world beyond. Historians still debate how much artisans like you relied on natural light versus artificial lamps for their precise work. Some argue that the quality of daylight was essential for the finest craftsmanship, while others believe that oil lamps and candles sufficed, especially during the long Dutch winters. Your own experience leans toward the truth somewhere in between, adapting with the seasons and the tasks at hand. As the sun reaches its zenith, you notice the flicker of light catching a musical clock on your shelf, a whimsical piece that plays gentle melodies on tiny bells. The shadows it casts are as fleeting as the tunes themselves, a reminder that even time, for all its precision, has moments of whimsy and delight. You return to your tools, fingers steady, eyes trained. The daylights, dance continues, a silent partner in your work, a reminder that even in the mechanical world, light and time are forever intertwined. Time pulses quietly through the veins of 17th century Dutch life, an invisible rhythm shaping everything from bustling trade routes to the solemn tolling of church bells. As you glance from your workshop window, The city swarms with activity. Merchants haggle loudly over spices and textiles. Clergymen prepare for midday prayers, and families mark the hours of meals and rest. In this world, clocks are not mere curiosities. They are vital tools that structure daily existence. The rise of accurate timekeeping coincides with the Dutch Golden Age's explosion of commerce and exploration. Ships leave the harbor on precise schedules, factories and markets operate by the clock, and social hierarchies assert themselves through punctuality. You imagine how your humble creations quietly underpin this grand, complex dance. Yet historians still debate the extent to which clocks permeated everyday life at this time. Some argue that only the wealthy or institutions like churches owned such devices, while others suggest that portable clocks and watches were becoming increasingly common among the emerging middle class. Regardless, the social impact is undeniable. Timekeeping becomes a measure of order, discipline, and modernity. You recall a curious local custom you once heard about, a merchant's wife who sets her household clock an hour ahead to ensure servants finish chores promptly. Such small manipulations reveal how humans bend time's flow to their will, even if only symbolically. Religious observance also hinges on time. The church's schedule of bells calls the faithful to prayer, confession, and rest. The clockmaker's skill thus supports not only commerce but spiritual life, binding the secular and sacred with gears and springs. This dual role sometimes fuels debate among scholars, whether mechanical time diminishes or enhances religious experience. The city's canals reflect the sunlight in glittering strips, mirroring the order and precision your clocks strive to embody. As merchants navigate the waterways, you think of how your craft aids their journey, allowing accurate timing of tides and schedules critical to safe passage. Meanwhile, daily routines revolve around the clock's steady march. School children arrive punctually, apprentices like you begin their labor at dawn, and tavern owners close doors according to municipal ordinances timed by your clocks. The subtle power of timekeeping enforces social norms, an invisible hand guiding behavior. You ponder how the increasing demand for clocks has changed your profession. More than ever, precision and reliability are prized, but so too is the aesthetic. Ornate cases, musical chimes, and clever automata make clocks status symbols, blending utility with artistry. Despite all this, some still question if the clock's rise led to a loss of natural rhythms, sun and moonlight giving way to mechanical order. Historians continue to debate how this shift affected human experience, a topic you find fascinating as you carve yet another gear. In the quiet moments, you sometimes wonder what time truly means. Is it merely measured seconds or something more elusive? But such thoughts are for late nights when the workshop is silent save for the steady tick-tock echoing your own heartbeat. Among the many marvels scattered across your workshop sits one particularly whimsical creation, a musical clock, ornate and polished, its brass face gleaming softly in the afternoon light. Unlike your usual utilitarian timepieces, this one delights in singing melodies at the turn of each hour, its tiny mechanical birds and chimes creating an unexpected symphony of gears and notes. You can't help but smile at the charming absurdity of it all, a clock that tells time and entertains simultaneously. This fascination with musical clocks is more than mere whimsy. In the 17th century, Dutch clockmakers often competed to create timepieces that combined precision with artistry, blending mechanics and music to captivate owners and visitors alike. These clocks might play popular folk tunes or even imitate the calls of birds, adding a layer of enchantment to the otherwise rigid concept of measured time. However, some traditionalists regard musical clocks as frivolous distractions, arguing that timekeeping should be sober and exact. Historians still debate whether these ornate creations represented genuine innovation or were simply luxurious novelties for the wealthy. You find yourself sympathizing with both sides. After all, there's beauty in blending function with art, yet the challenge of keeping the music in sync with time's relentless march is formidable. You adjust a tiny hammer that strikes a bell, testing the mechanism's delicate timing. The notes chime clearly, ringing through the workshop like a brief celebration before fading into silence. It reminds you how much patience and care it takes to craft something that is both precise and playful. Interestingly, some of these musical clocks became prized possessions of the Dutch elite, signaling status and taste. Others found their way into taverns and public houses, where their melodies provided a comforting backdrop to noisy gatherings. You've heard tales of a famous clockmaker who built an entire orchestra of mechanical instruments powered by clockworks, a marvel that blurred the line between machine and musician. As you tinker with the small gears controlling the musical sequence, you can't help but think how these clocks mirror life itself, a blend of routine and surprise, of structure and creativity. In a way, the music softens the harsh tick of passing hours, reminding us that time isn't only measured but also felt. Outside your window, the muffled laughter of children echoes through the narrow streets, mingling with the occasional church bell. The clock's gentle song seems a fitting soundtrack to the city's vibrant pulse, a small rebellion against time's unforgiving precision. Yet, as charming as musical clocks are, their complexity means they require extra maintenance and delicate handling. You've spent many evenings carefully tuning the tiny mechanisms to prevent them from going out of sync or falling silent. It's a labor of love, and one you undertake gladly. Adjusting the clock's winding mechanism, you feel a sense of satisfaction. In these moments, the mechanical and the magical intertwine, reminding you that your craft is not just about marking hours but also about bringing moments to life. The day drifts lazily toward afternoon, and it's time for a much-needed break. You pour yourself a small cup of strong, bitter coffee, an exotic import that's become increasingly popular in Dutch households. The aroma fills your workshop. Mingling with the metallic scent of brass and the faint tang of linseed oil, you take a slow sip, letting the warmth settle in your chest. A small comfort amid the rigors of delicate clockmaking. Coffee breaks are a sacred ritual in your routine, moments where the steady tick of clocks pauses just long enough for reflection. You lean back, eyes half closed, listening to the faint hum of the city beyond the window. The chatter of vendors, the clatter of carts, even the distant bark of a dog become a soothing backdrop to your thoughts. As the caffeine sharpens your senses, your mind wanders to philosophical musings that have intrigued scholars for centuries. What is time, really? Is it a constant flow, an unbreakable river? Or is it fragmented, a series of moments strung together by memory and expectation? Some say time is linear. Others argue it bends and folds like the creases of your worn leather apron. Historians and philosophers still debate these questions, their discussions as intricate and elusive as the clocks you build. You stare at a pendulum swinging steadily in the corner, its rhythm a tangible embodiment of time's passage. The steady arc feels almost hypnotic, a reminder that despite human musings, time's relentless march continues unabated. Yet your work allows you a rare form of control, a chance to shape, measure, and even manipulate time's flow, if only mechanically. The coffee's warmth encourages a brief daydream of distant lands where these very clocks will travel, carried, aboard merchant ships navigating treacherous seas. You imagine sailors relying on your work to guide their navigation, hoping that your precision will keep them safe. It's a weighty responsibility that both humbles and motivates you. On a lighter note, you recall a humorous tale shared among your fellow clockmakers. One apprentice once tried to time his coffee break with a sundial, only to be late back to the workshop because of a sudden cloud. The irony isn't lost on you. Clocks may be complex, but they're certainly more reliable than the sun on a cloudy Dutch afternoon. You finish your coffee and stretch, feeling the familiar ache in your back and hands. The break renews your focus. Soon you'll return to your bench to tackle the next delicate task. But for now, the moment lingers, a quiet pause in the steady rhythm of your day. The interplay of thought and craft, caffeine and contemplation, reminds you that time is not only a mechanical measure but a lived experience, rich with nuance and mystery. Exotic spices, rare woods, and shimmering metals arrive daily at Amsterdam's bustling ports. The spoils of Dutch global trade weaving a rich tapestry of influences that reach even your modest workshop. These foreign treasures aren't just luxuries for the wealthy. They inspire innovation and fuel your craft, offering materials that once seemed unimaginable. The polished brass of your gears gleams brighter thanks to these distant lands, each piece a tiny testament to a world growing smaller and more connected. Trade with Asia, Africa, and the Americas brings more than just goods. It carries ideas, techniques, and curiosity that challenge the boundaries of traditional clockmaking. You've recently acquired a small batch of Chinese silk for clock cases and a shipment of rosewood from the Indies, prized for its durability and beauty. These materials imbue your clocks with a rare elegance, distinguishing them from those made purely with local resources. Yet, this influx of exotic materials raises questions among your peers. Does reliance on foreign imports enrich your craft, or make it vulnerable? Historians still argue about the global impact of Dutch trade on local industries, debating whether it spurred innovation or dependency. For you, it's a delicate balance, embracing new resources while preserving the soul of Dutch craftsmanship. You've heard stories of clockmakers in other cities adapting these materials in surprising ways. Ebony gears, pearl inlays, even clocks that incorporate imported ivory. Each innovation carries its own risks and rewards, blending aesthetics with functionality. You weigh these tales carefully, ever mindful of your guild's cautious stance on change. Beyond materials, trade influences your clientele and the markets you serve. Merchants dealing in exotic goods are eager to own clocks that reflect their worldly status, demanding pieces that speak both to precision and opulence. This demand pushes you to experiment with ornate designs, intricate carvings, and musical features that echo distant lands, yet the origins of some materials carry shadows, stories of exploitation, conflict, and the heavy cost of empire. These are rarely spoken of in polite company, but they weigh quietly on your conscience. You wonder how much your clock's beauty is intertwined with such complexities. As you work a piece of rosewood into a clock's casing, you marvel at how global currents ripple into your daily toil. The blend of local skill and global influence defines the era, a crossroads of tradition and innovation. Outside, the harbor hums with activity, ships laden with goods from far-flung continents. Each sail that crests the horizon carries with it a new possibility, a new material, a new story, one that might end here, in the gears and springs of your clocks. You adjust a delicate brass cog, feeling the weight of history and progress in your hands, a silent witness to a world in motion. You pause, fingers stained with brass dust, and think of your family, ancient craftsmen whose skills echo through generations like a whispered legacy. Tales of your forebears shape the quiet foundation beneath your hands, a lineage of artisans who learn the secrets of clockmaking, not through books but through patient apprenticeship and shared wisdom. Each gear you file carries a fragment of their stories, a connection to the past woven through time itself. Family ties in your trade are strong, almost sacred. From early childhood, apprenticeships bind sons to fathers, brothers to brothers, and masters to promising youths. The craft is a heritage passed down like a precious heirloom, a secret language of measured strokes and tiny screws. You remember your grandfather's steady hands and the scent of his workshop, both etched indelibly into your memory. Yet there's a persistent debate among scholars and craftsmen alike. Is the talent for clockmaking inherited, or is it forged? Through experience and learning? Some claim a natural aptitude, a clockmaker's touch passed genetically, while others insist it's a discipline cultivated entirely through discipline and practice. You suspect the truth lies somewhere in the middle, a blend of nature and nurture. Family rivalries sometimes complicate this tradition. You've heard whispered stories of feuds sparked over technique, apprenticeship rights, or guild membership. The stakes are high in this world where reputation and skill determine livelihood. Yet despite occasional tensions, the sense of belonging and shared purpose often triumphs. Your own workshop reflects this legacy. Tools inherited from your father, sketches in his hand, and a workbench scarred by decades of dedication. These tangible links to your lineage remind you daily that you are part of something larger than yourself, a single cog in an unbroken chain. Sometimes you wonder how much your family's reputation precedes you. Do clients come for your skill, or the weight of your name? Does that legacy open doors or cast long shadows? It's a quiet tension, the burden and blessing of heritage. In the evening light, you cradle a delicate gear, imagining it as a metaphor for family. Small, seemingly, insignificant alone but essential in the greater whole. Just as gears mesh to move time forward, so too do family ties interlock to propel tradition onward. Outside your window, children play in the street, perhaps unaware of the invisible threads binding their futures to crafts like yours. You smile, softly, knowing that one day your own story will become part of the tapestry, whispered in workshops yet to come. As dusk settles gently over Amsterdam, the soft glow of candlelight begins to spill from your workshop's windows, painting warm, flickering patterns onto the worn wooden floorboards. The day's harsh daylight fades, replaced by shadows that dance and merge, creating a world at once familiar and strange. The comforting scent of beeswax and burnt tallow mingles with the lingering aroma of linseed oil on your hands, evoking a timeless atmosphere that transcends hours and days. You light a cluster of candles, their flames trembling slightly in the evening breeze that sneaks through the cracked window pane. The flickering light casts lively shadows over your brass gears and wooden clock cases, turning each piece into a moving tableau of light and dark. The entire workshop seems to breathe, alive with the pulse of your craft. Working by candlelight requires a delicate balance. The soft illumination reveals details while coaxing your eyes to strain just enough to sharpen your focus. There is a quiet intimacy to this twilight hour, where the workshop's usual clatter softens to a gentle symphony of ticking clocks, the whispered sighs of mechanisms settling for the night. This serene glow transforms your space into a sanctuary, a haven where the relentless pace of the outside world slows to a meditative cadence. You take a moment to admire the way the light plays upon an elegantly carved clock case, shadows tracing its curves and intricate details. Here, craftsmanship meets artistry, and time itself seems to hold its breath. The candlelight also reveals imperfections, tiny scratches, slight misalignments that daylight might overlook. Such discoveries are gifts, moments to correct and refine, ensuring each clock you craft not only tells time but tells it well. Historians often note the challenges artisans faced working long hours under flickering flame, eyes weary but spirits undimmed. The candle's glow was both friend and foe, illuminating creation while reminding craftsmen of the day's end. Outside, the city quiets, the sounds of merchants and carriages replaced by the distant murmur of night watchmen. Your clocks tick steadily on, companions in the stillness, marking time for those who sleep and those who dream. In this gentle glow, you feel connected to your craft, to the past, and to the countless clockmakers who have worked in similar light, guided by flame and passion. The tools resting on your workbench are a curious blend of ancient tradition and emerging innovation. The well-worn files, small hammers and tweezers bear the marks of countless years and countless hands, passed down through generations like sacred relics. Yet alongside these familiar implements, new instruments, precision calipers and early lathes begin to appear, promising efficiency and refinement that challenge the old ways. You find yourself navigating this crossroads carefully. The hand tools offer a tactile intimacy, the feel of metal yielding beneath your fingers, the subtle feedback that machines cannot replicate. Yet the promise of new technology, allowing finer details and faster production, tugs at your curiosity. This tension is the heartbeat of your craft in these changing times. Historians still debate whether this era marked the dawn of industrialization or was merely an incremental step in craft evolution. Some argue that the introduction of mechanical aids accelerated progress, but at the cost of artisanship and individuality. Others contend that these tools enhanced skill, freeing craftsmen to explore greater complexity and artistry. As you polish a tiny escapement wheel, your fingers occasionally stray to a newly acquired hand crank lathe, a recent marvel that shapes metal with surprising speed and accuracy. You recall the cautious enthusiasm with which your guild greeted such devices, equal parts fascination and suspicion. Despite the allure of innovation, you remain committed to mastering traditional techniques, the warmth of hand filing, the patience required to shape each gear tooth feels essential, not just for quality, but for connecting with centuries of lineage. You suspect that machines may never replicate the nuanced touch of a seasoned craftsman. Sometimes you overhear debates in the guild hall about whether new tools threaten to render skilled labor obsolete. You see younger apprentices gravitating toward mechanized methods, eager to embrace change, while older masters cling to time-honored ways. This generational divide adds a layer of complexity to the craft's future. Your workshop, then, is a microcosm of a larger transformation, a space where past and future meet often uneasily. You balance tools old and new, forging clocks that bear the imprint of both human touch and mechanical aid. In the fading light, as you carefully set aside your files and oil your lathe, you feel the weight and promise of this moment. The craft you cherish is evolving, and you stand at its intersection, shaping not only clocks but the very future of clockmaking. You sling your satchel over your shoulder, stepping out into the cobbled streets with a sense of purpose. Today, your journey takes you beyond the familiar confines of the workshop, to the homes and businesses where your clocks tick quietly, anchoring moments in the lives of strangers. Repairing clocks is a different kind of work, intimate and revealing, as each timepiece carries not only mechanisms, but stories etched in wood and brass. The air is crisp, tinged with the salty breath of the nearby canal. You navigate narrow alleys and bustling squares, the city unfolding around you like a living clockwork of its own. At each doorstep you are greeted with varying warmth. Some clients eager to share their histories, others more reserved, simply wanting their clocks restored to life. Inside a wealthy merchant's parlor, you carefully open an elaborate case, revealing a clock that has stopped mid-tick. You sense the owner's pride in this piece, their connection to time made tangible through generations. As you examine the gears and springs, you listen to their tales of voyages, fortunes won and lost, of family milestones marked by the clock's chimes. Every repair reveals a unique personality, a weathered town hall clock that's counted decades of council meetings, a delicate music box clock cherished by a grieving widow, a humble kitchen timekeeper that marks the rhythm of daily meals. You realize clocks are more than tools. They are silent witnesses to life's joys and sorrows. Historians still debate whether the emotional bonds people form with their clocks influence design trends or if the craft's evolution was driven solely by technological advances. From your experience, it's clear that sentiment and function intertwine, each shaping the other. On one visit, a child watches wide-eyed as you wind a grandfather clock, the slow, steady tick filling the room like a heartbeat. You smile, remembering your own first encounter with timepieces and how those early moments inspired a lifetime's devotion. Sometimes repairs are challenges, a worn gear here, a bent spring there, requiring creative problem-solving and delicate hands. You carry spare parts, tiny tools, and an assortment of oils, always prepared for the unexpected. Each fix is a puzzle, a chance to breathe new life into these keepers of time. The personal stories connected to each clock deepen your respect for the craft. You are not just a mechanic but a guardian of memories, preserving moments one tick at a time. As evening falls, you walk home beneath the fading light, your satchel lighter, your mind full of the lives intertwined with your work. The city's pulse slows, but your clocks keep beating, steady and true. Your thoughts drift as you sit quietly, reflecting on the legacy your craft leaves behind. Dutch clocks have long been prized not only for their precision but for their artistry, becoming treasured artifacts displayed in grand halls, museums, and collectors' cabinets. You imagine how centuries from now people will gaze upon your work, tracing the delicate engravings and intricate mechanisms with reverence and curiosity. The legacy of Dutch clockmaking is woven deeply into the fabric of history, a testament to a culture that prized innovation, craftsmanship, and the mastery of time itself. Your creations, though humble, are part of this enduring story, silent ambassadors of a bygone era's ingenuity and aesthetic. Yet, historians debate how much of this legacy is truly preserved. While some clocks have been meticulously maintained or restored, many have been lost to time's ravages, destroyed in wars, misplaced in family upheavals, or forgotten in dusty attics. The survival of your work depends as much on luck as on skill. You ponder the paradox of legacy. Your laborious efforts, once so vital, may one day be relics, admired but no longer understood by most. The language of gears and escapements may become as foreign as ancient scripts requiring scholars to decipher. Still, the essence of your craft, precision, patience, and passion, will resonate through the ages. Museums showcase clocks as marvels of technology and art, but you wonder if the quiet dignity of daily use is fully appreciated. Your clocks mark the mundane and the momentous alike, their steady ticks accompanying births, deaths, celebrations, and farewells. Collectors prize rare and ornate pieces, sometimes paying fortunes for musical clocks, or those with elaborate automata. Yet you suspect true value lies in the unseen, clocks faithfully keeping time in homes, churches, and workshops like yours. This reflection softens your gaze as you consider your place in history. You are both creator and custodian, a link in an unbroken chain. The ticks you craft ripple outward, touching lives and shaping time's flow in ways both grand and subtle. Outside, the city's nighttime hush deepens, and you feel a profound connection to the countless clockmakers who have come before and those who will follow. Your work, though often unseen, is a lasting imprint on the fabric of time. Night deepens, and you begin your final preparations for tomorrow's work. The workshop is quiet now, bathed in the soft glow of lantern light, the ticking of clocks a gentle chorus in the stillness. You carefully clean your tools, wiping away the day's brass dust and oil, each motion deliberate and reverent. This ritual signals the close of another chapter in your endless dance with time. You arrange your files, hammers, and tweezers neatly on the bench, ready for the morning's precision. The steady cadence of ticking surrounds you, a reminder that your work is part of a timeless rhythm. As you wipe down a finished gear, you think of the countless moments it will mark once assembled into a clock. Moments of joy, sorrow, and quiet contemplation. The night air seeps through the slightly open window, cool and fresh, carrying distant city sounds, the occasional carriage wheels, a dog's bark, the soft murmur of late conversations. It's a lullaby that accompanies your closing tasks, blending with the mechanical heartbeat of your creations. In these quiet hours, your thoughts drift to the infinite cycle of cogs and springs, the endless turning of wheels that measure existence itself. Time is both your master and your muse, a puzzle you shape with care, aware of its mystery even as you tame its flow. You wonder what tomorrow will bring. New challenges, subtle imperfections to correct, tiny miracles of craftsmanship to discover. The clockmaker's life is unending, a silent vow to honor precision and patience, to weave human hands into the fabric of time. As you extinguish the lanterns one by one, shadows gather softly around the room, folding the day into night. The clocks continue their steady tick, companions in the dark, guardians of moments past and yet to come. Slowly, your eyelids grow heavy. The workshop fades into a gentle hush, the mechanical symphony softening into a whisper. You rest, cradled by time's embrace, ready to rise again with the dawn's first light and the promise of new gears to shape. Now to slow the pace gently, the hours soften, their sharp edges mellowing into a soothing, endless flow. Time slips like warm water through your fingers, calm and constant. In this peaceful moment, the weight of the day lifts, leaving only the quiet hum of clocks ticking softly around you. The scent of aged wood and brass lingers gently, wrapping you in a tender embrace. Each breath slows, deepens, inviting rest. Shadows lengthen and fold, carrying away the bustle of waking life. Here, in the gentle twilight of the mind, you drift, free, held safe by time itself, the eternal companion on your journey. Rest now, and when dawn returns, the world will be ready to turn anew. Sleep well, dear clockmaker, for tomorrow the dance continues.